Hi, I'm Iggy London, and you're watching Angie's Book Club.
It's another edition of ABC. And I first of all want to say thank you so much to this young man sitting next to me, because he is, now your demographic would say hella busy. I'm just going to say he's busy.
Yeah.
Iggy London, thank you for joining me on ABC.
Thank you.
And thank you for this book, Mandem.
Yeah.
Mandem is a collection of writings from some, I'm going to say, powerful British black men.
Yeah.
Of African and Caribbean mixed race heritage who aren't just talking about their jobs. When I look at the section about the authors, as I read through, I think, wow, these guys have achieved some great things. They're lecturers, they're writers, they're poets, they're teachers. But I want to know about the heart of the man.
That's right.
And that's what this book is about. First question, how did you get these guys together?
Yeah. No, but for me, it's really, well, thank you so much for even having me.
It's a pleasure.
It's a pleasure. But first and foremost, I think for me, I was thinking about the type of stories that we tell each other at the barbershop. You
Okay.
know? And as young men, I feel like majority of the time that we have these conversations, we always have these conversations through the barbershop. And I wanted, when I was creating this book, I figured that the barbershop was this big place where we could commune.
Yeah.
And I don't think normally we have these other vicinities or venues that we can actually come together. Because men, as a lot of the time, work in this like silo, you know, hey bruv, how's it going? I want to be like you, blessings, and they depart. So I wanted to...
So you don't get deep
you don't
into
get
conversation.
Deep. You don't get
Okay,
deep. But
okay.
then in the barbershop, even though I don't know anyone from Adam or Eve, they're like, I'm having these amazing, you know, diverse conversations. So I thought about the stories that I had with the barbershop and how they were so synonymous to the stories that I had with a majority of the people in the book. And they were always people that I admired, connected with different projects, or actually was just a massive fan of. So I just reached out to them. Majority of them were my friends already, because we had touched upon conversations and themes about masculinity, manhood, and through poetry. So Yomi and like Jordan Stevens, who were great poets. From Rizzle
Yes.
Cakes, yeah. So he was like my, been my friend for such a long time, and we've always seen each other and respected sort of our works, but we never had the chance to actually commune together and actually have like work on a body of work, like a written essay. So it was really a chance for me to be able to go back to all of these people that I admired and go, I know that you are so exceptional in terms of your own work, but how do I sort of get into understanding you as a person and
Your
how
mind.
that affects? And as you see from the majority of those sort of bios in the book, it's like they're brilliant people, they're brilliant thinkers, and they've had these accolades, as you said, but what does it look like to be them as who they are as people, but the history and their story, you know?
It's the heart of each man, isn't it, that
Yeah.
we're trying to tap into, and the emotions of each man. Why, in your opinion, and in doing this book, why did you find that there was any outcome as to why men have this exterior?
Yeah.
Why they put it up?
Yeah, I think it was a bit of it's quite diverse. There's a lot of things, and I think that the book touches upon a lot of different ways that has come about. And the one that sort of kept on being reminded was the idea that masculinity, or the idea of repression of one's emotions, could be used as a weapon for the outside world, a way to protect one from the sort of like the little nuances, the digs that you get from social just interactions in everyday life. And I feel as though like young people have been able to figure that out, that's not the one. Like back in the day, I feel like a lot, especially during the time of this book and the times in which people have written in this book, a lot of the conversations were like, you have to be man enough, you have to be tough enough, you have
What
to do
does that
this.
mean, Iggy?
Yeah.
What does being man enough mean?
Yeah, I think for me, I don't really know. I don't think those words actually sort of correlate directly with me, because I feel as though like as part of your own sort of self-growth and self-healing, you have to have a balance of all the different emotions that you have. Whereas I think back in the day, like even that's the reason why I kind of touched upon the idea of Mandem. When you think about Mandem, you think about guys on the block.
Yeah.
The roadside.
Roadman.
So you think about like the guys on the block, the roadside. You know, you think about the new era. You think about the MySpace Pixo days. You think about the block with a Rockweiler and like, you know, with a brick wall. Like you think about all of these different connotations. And what I wanted to do was break down these ideas. Like all of these people in this book are great thinkers and writers, but I wanted to have this title that sort of addressed Mandem, that circumvents these ideas, or like reverses the idea of what Mandem is, really and truly, in this sort of like grand scope of the word. And also to bring more light to the idea that there's so many other men who have these different tropes. Like, for example, you go back in the day, I used to like, when I was younger, I would just go and see the newspapers, and I would see individuals and like names, and they're people who are black, men just being titled and having nameless sort of like stories, like boy shot, blah blah blah, stabbed, this and that. And I was really perplexed at the idea of like they're not even given a name.
Yeah.
Even in this time of sort of like expression, even in this time in sort of their lived experience, they're not even given a name when they pass. So I wanted to actually start giving names to people who I believe are so very much relevant and valuable in this world, but no one seems to give us or raise their attention unless we're siloed, unless they're Iggy London, director, writer, or Yomi Sode, poet. And I wanted to like, or Jordan Stevens, Whizzle Kicks. You always have to have something aligned to your name, and
Yes.
your name alone can't be the thing. And I wanted to raise more attention to that.
It's like the name and then what that person has achieved professionally.
Always.
As opposed to, people say to me all the time, you know, what's it like being a radio presenter? I say, well, it's my job. Yeah. I don't wake up with headphones, just like a plumber doesn't wake up with a monkey wrench in his hand. Yeah. But we do this all the time, and I do think black men get a difficult rap because it's almost as though if you've achieved something, you are then worthy.
Yeah.
Are you not worthy when you wake up in the morning?
Yeah, and I think I'm having this massive conversation to myself about personal healing and the ideas of it. I think as you grow ahead, and like, this is so prevalent to black men, but like as you grow older, you're taught that by virtue of you acquiring things, you are more worthy to gain acceptance and permission in society. So, for example, when I was told, when I was younger, I was told that only you just need to get this house, and then you'll get the car, and then you'll get the job, and then you'll get this, and you'll get that, and then life will be good. And actually, the more I start, your value, people will know you to high regard, or people will respect you. But actually, I wanted to flip the script. By virtue of you being born, by virtue of you being accepted into this world, by virtue of you being able to be introduced into this world, you have the value and you have the right to be here. And this is what Mandem's all about. It's about understanding that by virtue of you having a story, you have the right to actually be told that you're a man, and believe that identity,
Were there any men, and you don't have to name them if there were, that didn't want to contribute?
Yes.
There were. That's fine. And I'm going to assume, I don't want to know who they are, perhaps in being a bit too open, because it didn't... I'm sorry, did you hear my stomach? I'm going to assume, perhaps in being too open, it didn't align with the Mandem.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel as though it was a struggle, because ultimately this was an invitation for people to be able to address and say the things that they actually wanted to say and they've never had a chance to say. So yeah, and it does do things which is a little bit more provoking. I'm not going to say to you, tell me if, like Ashley Hickson-Lovence, he speaks so much about football and the football culture, but I wanted him to talk about something which was like, how do you use football in this way, or how do we use, like, he's always said like he's loved drill, and I was like, that doesn't make sense. Those things don't align. They shouldn't align, right? But by being able to like bring those stories together, it lets you know more about the man. It lets you more about the individual.
I've got the dog ear there because I really want to touch on that. Yeah. Can I ask you if these men, the majority of them, any of them, had good relationships with their fathers? And regardless of the culture, whether mixed race, UK, African, Caribbean, did you find that the platform of the father-son relationship blossomed in these writings?
100%. There was, I always thought that the whole thing is that by providing a blueprint for these like normal, mundane, but really valuable and beautiful stories, that you would ultimately be able to have this level of healing, of this sort of a cathartic relationship. And it actually, from writing it, my experience of just like my family and like my family connections changed, because ultimately they were like, oh, like it opened up a Pandora's box of like all these thoughts that they already had, and they wanted to divulge and discuss, but ultimately they couldn't because they didn't know what platform, you know, to have. And so I think it was really important for me to write these stories and tell them, and by virtue of also speaking about them, there was so many more kind of conversations and healing that was taught. And you know, there was like these talks that we did just at the release of the book, and it felt like a therapy session in itself. It felt like this like level of just like people talking, and it doesn't matter in terms of how you identify. People were able to really like divulge and discuss, and like the reasons why maybe people aren't connected to their fathers, or the connection between their mother's sort of struggle with their father and also the child, and wanting to protect the child, but also having this relationship with their father, actually was really something that was an important part of growth and sort of belief and expectations. Like for example, like, you know, sometimes there's this whole thing about, you know, like it is hard for being a father in a certain generation and growing and raising a man who's not from that generation. And I think there was a lot of like battles between like, how does cultural differences and how does that affect your sort of relationship between your mother and the mother that you love and you care, but also is in a dynamic that you think is unhealthy? And how do you sort of like break down those sort of barriers and those chains? And what does that mean for you as a man to go, oh, this is what I need to actually do? Do I need to protect women? Do I need to strive? And therefore, does that take a toll on my own mental health or my own? There was all these different things. And so, yeah, it was super interesting.
I think definitely in African and Caribbean cultures, especially if you're of my generation, my father was 96 when he died, and he was always a provider. Notice I said provider first. Yeah. And it's in seeing dad provide, dad go to work, always paying, overseeing. You never think, when dad's in bed at night,
what's he thinking?
What's he thinking? Is he tired? Is he allowed to say he's tired?
Yeah.
Are these emotions allowed to come out?
Yeah, 100%. And those are the things that really toy with you. And ultimately what I wanted to do was like, I don't want a bunch of people in this generation to grow up and go, I lay awake at night thinking, you know? And I think by virtue of like having these conversations, but also like the writing, the process of just writing, and like the commune of different people and actually discussing, actually allowed those people just to feel a little bit better, to work on their issues and to work on their sort of struggles, and even just the everyday life of those stories, for sure. Yeah.
Iggy, before we just touch on a few of the chapters here, I want to ask talk me through the connection with the young black man and his mother.
Yeah.
A beautiful relationship, but if the mother is unfulfilled in her marriage, the one person she can get unconditional love from is her son.
Yeah.
Which can sometimes move on into his relationships of having expectations that are perhaps a little bit draining on his partner.
Yeah, facts. facts.
Did you like the way I put
100%.
that? I'm trying so hard here. Yeah.
But no, 100%. I feel like there's, I want to keep it 100% a buck. I'm one of those people, I am a mummy's boy.
Okay.
I don't think you understand. My mum is my hero. My mum is like this like iron lady, iron woman, superwoman. I feel like she has all of those sort of like aspects and attributes. And I feel as though like, you know, Mother's Day, you know, there was a whole thing about Mother's Day, and then sometimes when it's Father's Day, you still post your mum. Like, you rate your mum so highly to the point where like she couldn't do no wrong.
Yeah.
And I think that where we struggle is that sometimes we put that in our own relationships with our partners. Sometimes we start to say, oh, like that person has to withhold and bear the emotions and the trauma and all these things that we do as men, and that person has to be almost bionic. And I think that that's where it goes wrong. I think, you know, looking back and now changing the relationship and the dynamic that I have with my mum, it's one of those things where I'm actually realizing that she's actually not so superhuman, even though it's beautiful and it's amazing.
Yeah.
But also it's good that she has emotions, and she also has this dynamic with me, and I'm learning that I can be a friend. And once I started understanding that actually I could be a friend, and sometimes she has bad days, it led me to understand that not everyone's perfect, and not everyone can walk with you through the journey of self-growth and healing. Sometimes you have to do it alone. And I think there were so many things that growing up I just did not know how my mum had the time.
Yes.
She had everything on the table. She worked 2 jobs. She taught me my times tables. She was never late for parents' evening. She made sure I had gums, and my gums are always fresh, and I always had a shape up. She taught me I could do so many things, and I feel like growing up from East London, Newham, you know, there's a sort of demographic, there's a sort of perspective that you have, and my mum always taught me that you could do anything. Honestly, like I feel like that's the reason why I just do so much, and I think I need to try to take a chill pill because sometimes it's too much for me. But basically, like there's a beauty in the fact that having a champion as like your mother, and I think that that's what made me such a go-getter now. But yeah, going back, I still need to understand that my mum still needs love. She still needs me to also now, as she gets older, to give back to her, and I feel like that's what I'm doing.
Do you think sometimes, based on the black men that have written in this book, we put too much on our mothers and end up putting too much on our partners?
Yeah, 100%. It's the dichotomy of understanding that that's the only thing that you've seen. That's the only thing that you
Absolutely.
know. That person's supposed to be everything to you, and so like flipping it back, it's just like you just expect the same thing. Well, my mum did this, and in my family it was this, and so suddenly you start to put these unrealistic expectations on your partners.
And if you know no different.
Yeah, what are you gonna do? You just expect it to be the same.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's touch on some of these subjects before I come back to you, because I really want to get your take on this hard exterior that black men are supposed to have, and they inherit it whether they want it or not. Yeah. Let's touch on some subjects of music. We're going to go to rap, but Ashley Hickson-Lovence talks about wanting to be a drill artist. And I'm going, okay, because my generation and from the radio stations I've worked at, drill means something very different. So having come from Choice FM, where R&B was just lacing us, you know, if you think it was something new and it was really great, then I moved on to Magic and now Smooth. It's what I would call multi-generational music. So if you're going to pick up your kids from school, if you've got Smooth on in the car, you're not going to hear anything offensive. You're not going to hear me say anything offensive. I can't say the same for drill. My generation doesn't deeply understand the positive side of drill and the message that it's trying to give. So there's Ashley driving along the country lane, going to do his school teaching, and I'm imagining him there in his car, and it's sunny and it's beautiful and it's green, and he's listening to drill.
Yeah.
And he's getting himself ready, and he's saying, right, I'm ready to take on this class.
Yeah.
And for a while, I couldn't quite connect with that. I really had to finish the chapter.
Yeah, 100%.
Talk me through his connection with that.
And it's really an interesting one, because when you look at drill, you think about the when I listen to drill, I think about this sort of reflection of society, reflection on the struggle in society. So I think so much times we, you know, as in music, we focus on love or heartbreak or these sort of stories which are obviously universal. Drill isn't necessarily as universal in terms of its approach or what the subject matter is, because it really focuses on this working class sort of plight and the struggles within the working class sort of system, whilst also understanding the context of like the wealth sort of crisis, and also the sort of the poverty crisis and the lack of funds and the lack of youth clubs, and as a result the consequences of it. And I think for me, drill was always supposed to, and in its sort of its identity, is something which can be seen as positive, because it allows for an outlet into sort of some of these deeper conversations. And what Ashley's story is about, what Ashley's sort of chapters about, is actually about how incredibly clever the writing and the themes and the sort of the dynamic sort of range in these type of verses. And he basically divulges into it a way which is almost, it feels like it's like you know, when you go to school, when you go to English literature, and the school teachers telling you like the things that Shakespeare did, you know, in terms of his writing and how it sort of connected, that he analyzes drill in the same respect.
Effectively, drill taps into the emotions that the love songs don't tap into.
Yeah, 100%.
And these emotions need to be dealt with.
Yeah.
I like when you tapped on the lack of youth clubs now, because summer holidays, when I was at school, it was a given.
Yeah.
Straight to the church hall, straight to the youth club. I'll come and pick you up at whatever time. We wouldn't dare be seen out on the street. But what do you do with those emotions if there is nowhere to go? If there is no community? If auntie, because we've all got aunties that aren't blood, if auntie isn't able to, do you know what I mean?
To help you. And also, if everyone's working 2 shifts, everyone's working 2 jobs, like how is it sustainable to like, what does one do? And also when you see your parents in that sort of scenario, when you can't put food on the table, what do you feel as though you have to do? What do you feel as though you have to sort of become? And how that kind of like removes your sense of like innocence and your youth, because suddenly you have to now pick up where your parents can't.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was what the beauty of his chapter, but also as like the references he uses, like these artists, like they speak about football, they speak about these other things in a really interesting way, like, and they use popular culture and how they weave that through drill. It's an artistry in itself, and it should be regarded as one for sure.
Jordan Stevens also talks about music as well, but how he connects it to his mental health, having been in Rizzle Kicks and up there.
Yeah.
We just saw him up there. We didn't think about what he was going through as a man, some of the emotions that he was going through, and then the hard exterior that he had to keep. One area that I really, really was happy that you touched on, because being the generation that I am, and I can say this very openly, when I first went into the media, my pastor wanted me to work for a Christian radio station. I didn't have an issue with that, but I knew I didn't want to. I knew that it was broad, and I'm not saying that Christianity is insular, please hear me. But you touch on the book on homosexuality, and I think that is really important, because when I was growing up, it was shut down. It didn't exist. God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, so that was that. And then I feel that there was some nuances in some types of music where, don't even mention it. It's so to have someone talk about this, and he doesn't say homosexual, he says a queer man, and speaks openly about that. Was that a hard chapter to write?
Yeah, I think for me, that definitely, for Phil basically writes this whole story about his experience of his queer identity, and coming from a queer
And does he say queer?
Yeah, he says queer, and I think that the reason why he does that is because I think his own sexual experience is sort of his own sexual experience, but I think he uses it as the best way to reflect his own identity, right?
Yeah.
And I think that for me, it was hard because ultimately, how do I edit a chapter where it's so personal?
Yes.
It's so personal to his own sort of experience.
Did you involve him in the editing?
Yeah, 100%. And I also was questioning, asking him the question. Like, for me, my thing is just building a pattern of true sequences that come together, and all I'm doing is like really chaperoning that experience. I'm not necessarily like trying to tell him this didn't happen or this isn't going to be done in this way. What I was trying to do was like go, how do we best communicate it to this audience?
Yes.
And so it was really interesting for me to take it from, I think other people, like for example Athian Akec, he talks about his Get Rich or Die Trying, and that one was more every single week, or we're speaking about it, we talk about it and we edit it together, or like I do notes and I come back to him. With Phil's, I think it was really trying to understand that actually Phil's experience is his own experience, and it's so singular and it's so particular, but he's so brave in telling this sort of experience of like meeting up with someone, his sexual sort of experience with them, and like the ideas of masculinity and how like suddenly things are imposed on him, like especially with people who aren't black, and how does that sort of relationship work when they have preconceived notions of who you are, and like and then how does that sort of work in the bedroom? And I think that what he was doing was really telling that story. And by the way, no one speaks about it. No one is brave enough to speak about it. And I feel like there's a lot of respect that I have for him for being able to tell his story so boldly. And he speaks so much about, sort of sexual health and sexual understanding, sexual identity. But this was his first time actually hearing that and seeing him, be so honest about it. So it was really great. It was really great for sure.
Yeah. It's not about agreeing or disagreeing. It's about embracing his story. Yeah. So many great chapters in here. I am going to end with you because you're writing Black Boys Don't Cry.
Yeah.
That touched me because I believed it. But in the silence of your room, in the silence of that time where you are aching inside and need to outpour, you have to cry.
Yeah.
You have to outpour it. How did we get from having this very hard exterior that we probably didn't ask for to then saying, do you know what? I got to let this down.
Yeah.
I got to get this out. I got to cry. I got to offload.
Yeah, 100%.
Or I'm going to go crazy.
I'm going to go crazy. It's weird because I feel as though like I always take it back to my family, and I feel like for me, I just always had a very loving, artistic, experimental upbringing. So my mum would like take me to film. I saw like so many films, and I went to so many different countries, and I explored the world, and I owe that to my mum. But obviously I had a different experience than the majority of the people that were living around me. And so when I was like was in primary school and secondary school, I just thought the world was my oyster. Like, I could do whatever I wanted, and there was no rhyme or reason, or there was no sort of experience that taught me I couldn't. I couldn't wear this, or I couldn't do this. And as I grew older, I understood that like actually that was not the status quo that majority of people were moving with, and like people had expectations, or people had things imposed to them. Like I went to school and I like had like top man jeans, top man slim fit jeans that everyone rocks now. Yeah. But back in the day it was only me, because everyone would just go to JD and get their their jogging bottoms. But I was the only one, and you paid £1, you non-uniform day, and you felt lit. And so for me, like it was cool to wear my stuff, like a checkered shirt, a t-shirt. I wore like this like Primark woolly hat back in the day with this weird belt and slim fit jeans, and people looked at me as if like I had like came from like
another world
completely. And I didn't understand why that was like that. And so I think for me, growing up, I realized that it was very much an experience where my sort of worldview didn't align with many people, and I feel like I was conflicted. But then going to uni and then studying law and like just understanding, opening up myself in terms of like going to, watching Def Jam poetry and like speak about the state of the world, I understood that there was this sort of experience is sort of secondary to like what is actually going on. And if I sort of use my voice to be this kind of like to spearhead real conversations, I don't need to care too much about what people think of me. And so like that's how it sort of develops, and slowly understood that like from a poem that I wrote, Black Boys Don't Cry, about this like ache that you have, like God telling you that you inherit the earth. But I understood like what's the point of inheriting the earth when people don't even know you or register you. There was these conversations I had about religion and all these identities and like what you can and can't do. And I feel like that's what built this Black Boys Don't Cry. And then I showed it at Hackney Picture House. Someone told me to make a film out of it, and then I became a filmmaker overnight. And I think so I owe it, number one, to that person for shouting me out to do a film for my New Year's resolution. But I also owe it to myself for writing the book. Writing the poem, because it basically made this book.
Has the book closed generational gaps? Hear me out. My daughters talk to me in a way, and sometimes I have to stop, because I think if I'd said that, my mum would have taken me to the dentist and then boxed out my teeth and then said to the dentist, put the teeth back in. So am I preventing my daughters from expressing themselves? Are they rude? Or do we just have to accept different generations speak differently and have a different generational experience? Exactly
that. I feel like that's what it is. It's that generational experience and understanding of coming together. We can actually have these conversations. But if you don't, then nothing is said, and therefore we just live in the silos. And the gap gets broader. 100%. Has it closed the gap? Yes, I feel so. Excellent. 100%. Could talk to you for ages. Thank you so much. I feel like we've only just really got started, 100%, to be honest. But no, it's amazing. Thank you so much, because honestly, I love the whole show, and I just keep doing what you're doing. And thank you so much. I want to buy the book, for sure. Mandem,
Iggy London, he's got a story in there, but there are writings from some amazing men because they're men, not because of their jobs. Iggy, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.